welcome to The Language of Power, a podcast brought to you by the European Policy Centre's Europe in the World programme. Every 2 weeks, we bring you insight on the latest geopolitical developments, how they affect Europe, and how Europe can affect them. I'm Paul Taylor, Senior Visiting Fellow at the EBC, and I'll be your host on these deep dives into global and European politics and security. Today, we're going to be talking about how Europe's automotive sector can help empower the continent's defence surge. 2 weeks ago, I published a report that was the culmination of a 9-month research project in partnership with the Association of European Automobile Manufacturers, ACEA, looking at how Europe's passenger car and truck manufacturers can contribute to the rearmament effort. The automotive industry is Europe's biggest manufacturing employer, accounting for nearly 14 million direct and indirect jobs and 7% of EU gross domestic product. But it's experiencing a sharp contraction due to the green transition, US tariff wars, high energy prices, and fierce Chinese competition. This comes just as Europe is seeking to expand its long-neglected defence industry, which is barely 1/10 the size of the automotive sector and faces a shortage of production capacity, skilled workers, and mass production expertise. Europe's armies are expanding with a corresponding increase in the need for logistics, as well as combat vehicles and new-age autonomous systems and drones. The market for logistics vehicles alone is estimated to be worth nearly 50 billion euros in the coming decade. It sounds like a natural match, yet there are many obstacles to the convergence between these two industries. For one thing, there's no single market for defence in Europe, unlike for civilian vehicles. Each country has its own military requirements and specifications, its own testing and certification procedures, its own security clearances for personnel, and its own rules for cross-border transfer of components, weapons, and know-how. It's a maze to navigate, designed in principle to protect national security, but used often in practice to favour national champions to the detriment of companies from other European countries. Moreover, the business models of the two sectors are as different as chalk and cheese. Defence companies typically produce small numbers of exquisite products at a slow pace with a long life cycle, often for a single government customer. That's a complete contrast with the fast-adapting auto sector, producing just-in-time vehicles for a mass market with a high turnover. My report argues that the auto industry has much to offer that could accelerate the scaling up of European rearmament, underutilized factories that could be converted, surplus skilled labor that could be retrained, cutting-edge R&D in everything from fuel cells to autonomous vehicles, connected vehicles, all-terrain mobility, logistics capabilities and supply chains, not to mention automation and robotics know-how. The report suggests a series of regulatory changes and public policy actions that could unleash the power of big auto to help drive the defence industry effort. Well, with me today to discuss whether and how that can be done, I'm delighted to welcome Fuensanta Martinez, Director of Transport Policy at ACEA, and Olaf Pannenbaecker, Chairman of the Board of the European Factories of the Future Research Association, who has a long experience of automotive manufacturing. Welcome to both of you. Fuensanta, let me start with you. Tell us, how interested are Europe's automotive producers in contributing to the defence effort, and what do they have to offer? Which do you see as the most attractive opportunities for cooperation?
Thank you, Paul. I would say the interest from automotive manufacturers is real, but measured. They do see the opportunity, but they are not looking to become defense companies. Today, for most automotive manufacturers, defense is still a small complementary activity, typically a minor percent of their business. So the mindset is rather pragmatic. So the question is, where can we contribute with what we already do well? And actually, what the automotive sector brings is exactly what Europe now needs: scale, first. Large industrial capacity, in some cases underused today. Second, efficiency, mass production, automation, robotics. And third, skills, very important. We have engineers, software experts, and advanced manufacturing. So it's not about reinventing the sector. It's about mobilizing existing strengths. So that's the interest and the opportunities that we see and the values.
And we're seeing lots of examples and sort of at the micro level of what's happening. For example, Volkswagen's just signed a memorandum of understanding with an Israeli manufacturer of the Iron Dome system to make components of that in a German factory in Osnabrück. We've seen today news of Mercedes teaming up with a drone company to protect Europe's and Germany's critical infrastructure, providing the vehicles on which the anti-drone systems will be mounted. Those are some examples of the cooperation. In France, we see Renault is with a startup company producing a limited number of drones in a couple of its plants now. So there are small examples sprouting everywhere.
Quite a lot of attractive opportunities, Paul. I would highlight some of them. The first that comes to my mind is military logistics. Okay, this is the most natural entry point, and I mean, truck manufacturers are already active, and demand is clearly set to grow. Then, high volume production, for instance. Drone airframes, you mentioned some cases where defense needs to scale up quickly and automotive knows how to industrialize. These are areas that are important also. And third, dual-use technologies, because today innovation often comes with the civilian side, software, connectivity, batteries, autonomous systems, and then moves into defense. So overall, the interest is there, but it's focused, it's selective, and it's based on clear added value, I would say.
So what do you see as the main obstacles to the automotive sector's engagement with defense industries, and how can they be overcome?
Well, there are opportunities, as I was mentioning, but also very real obstacles. And the first one is, you already mentioned in your introduction, Paul, is fragmentation. There is no single European defense market. Instead, we have many national systems with different rules, different standards, different procurement processes. So for an industry like ours that is used to the single market, this is a major barrier. And second, there is also a very important obstacle is the business model gap. Automotive is about scale, speed, and standardization, and defense is about low volumes, long timelines, and national specifications. So it's almost like two different worlds. Another obstacle is limited role and visibility. Defense companies will remain the prime contractors, and automotive companies will contribute, but typically as partners or suppliers. And then also there is uncertainty. Many automotive manufacturers still ask, how long will this defense surge last? Is it sustainable? So how do we move forward, you see?
Yeah, and what happens if there is a ceasefire in Ukraine? Does the European commitment to defense start to melt away and saying, well, right.
Indeed. Yeah.
I think that'll be a big challenge were it to happen. Well, let me turn to you, Olaf. In a recent analysis, EFRA, your association, highlighted what you called a convergence between the automotive and defense sectors. How do you see this happening in practice, and what can be done, should be done to facilitate this collaboration?
Yes, thank you. So for your information, the EFRA is an association that has members in automotive industry, but also in all other sectors of industries. So we can certainly see a convergence in automotive, but that does not stop when you look into other sectors like machine builders, or big heavy industries, field of industries. So what I'm seeing is, and many things have been said already, our members have just recently got a report, as it was also highlighted in the strategic rollout plan right now, that there is a lot of opportunities, such as mentioned, the capacities, the know-how, the skill set. What's also interesting is that because of the capacities shifting, production capacities shifting more into external countries, such as the China market or also from India, we can see that our capacities in Europe need alternative products, so to speak. We have always been into dual use parts, but the proportion looks like is shifting now. And from our possibility, as there is a demand on the one side and there's an overcapacity on the other side, it's a perfect match. And what we now need to do is we need to look for European solutions, and EFRA is certainly supporting this, in order to harmonize defense standards and certification procedures across Europe. It's clear that when you have a facility producing passenger cars, from one day to the other, it cannot be producing tanks or military vehicles, for sure not. Many of those standards need to be adjusted, need to be simplified, need to be also opened in order so that the industry equipment can take over and can run the defense standards on their machine sets already. But also, I think there must be a more of a mindset change in the European Commission on to opening up this and try to get things close together. So this convergence of different interests is reflected in the report that has been recently published by EFRA.
So what would you like to see the European Commission do specifically? What regulations might need changing, or how should they incentivize this?
Clearly, simplify cross-border industrial cooperations for technology transfers. Also, invest into workforce retaining and dual-use skills development. So, encourage joint R&D programs between automotive and industry companies. Currently, in the European Commission, as we know, everything which is funding is clearly separated between defense and all other fields of industries. But also expand the European funding for dual-use technologies, advanced manufacturing. So ultimately, Europe must start viewing defense industrial policy and industrial competitiveness as part of the same strategic agenda. The automotive sector has the industrial scale, innovation capacity, and innovation expertise, as we have heard. And we can significantly increase the defense readiness into Europe. So it's all about manufacturing, and this European Commission should support everywhere.
Do you agree that with my analysis that the automotive manufacturers are likely to act as subcontractors, making components and technologies to be integrated in defense systems rather than acting as prime contractors themselves?
Absolutely. That is what I'm seeing as well. And this is also because components usually are much higher in volume. And as we've heard, automotive is strong in scaling up mass production. So if we have different modules and systems, subsystems and components running into various modules and vehicles of the defense industry, the mass production part should be on a component level. So that puts automatically the automotive sector into a tier 1, 2, or even 3 level.
Yeah, these are component suppliers, basically, tiers 1, 2, and 3. Maybe there's a culture change there to some extent for the big manufacturers who are used to being primes in their own field, as it were. That may be sometimes require a mental adjustment and a business adjustment. Do you think that the real issue lies at European level, the real key lies at European level, or is it at national level?
I think it is on European level, because we will sooner or later see the defense industry coming together much closer in Europe. So having isolated defense programs running country per country in Europe would not serve the needs of the global geopolitics as we can see right now. So therefore, I think Europe has to play a major role in order to facilitate and to, I would even say, enforce cooperations between all stakeholders.
Yeah. Well, of course, the member states have to agree to that, and some of them are very protectionist about their defense markets and their defense champions. And defense spending is very political, just as defense manufacturing is very political. You come from Germany. Do you see still a lot of political resistance to civilian companies moving into the defense field, or is the mindset changing?
So I think we will have, in particular in Germany, but also in all other democratic countries in Europe, we have a wide span of political opinions, and I think it's good. This is very clearly, it's one of the values that we have in Europe. But what I'm seeing is clearly a shift. You cannot avoid, you cannot stop the development. So what you need to do, and the younger generation is telling us very clearly, when you listen to them, that we should be open. We should be taking this as the new reality, and we have to react on this. So the world is not as peaceful as everybody sees it and wants it. So it is not like this. So we have to shift more into that direction. That does not mean that from now on or from any point of time in the future, a complete company will only produce dual-use parts or defense goods. But there will be a shift. And that shift, I think, we can take it as an opportunity.
Yeah. Fuensanta, let me come back to you. Do you see this same convergence that's described by EFRA as being underway already? And what can European and national authorities, in your eyes, do to facilitate it?
Yes, we do see a convergence happening, but we should be clear what that means. It's not that automotive companies become defense primes. The convergence is happening in technology, skills, and production methods. For instance, vehicles, civilian and military, are becoming software-driven and connected. Technologies that, artificial intelligence, batteries, autonomous systems are increasingly developed in the civilian world. And defense is now looking to adopt automotive-style industrialization and scale. So we are moving towards a more integrated innovation ecosystem, sometimes called dual use or even omni-use, whatever you prefer. Now, there is a role for policymakers, that's for sure. What is this role? Well, first, create the framework. I'm talking here about standards, or rather harmonization of standards, because they already exist, but they have to be harmonized themselves. Yeah. Simplification of certification and export rules. Now it's a mix of everything, I would say, and move towards a more integrated European market. This refers to the fragmentation issue that I mentioned at the beginning. Second, we need more support for innovation. And as Olaf mentioned, we need to strengthen the funding for dual-use technologies. And we have to ensure that programs are accessible for automotive players. And then, very important, focus on people. We need support for reskilling. We need to facilitate movement between sectors. And we also need, to reduce administrative barriers. So that's what I would highlight as main elements for the convergence. Yes.
Olaf, you're in Germany, which is very much the epicenter of both the European automotive industry and the crisis. And it's also the country that's most rapidly expanding its defense budget. Do you see this reskilling going on in Germany already? Are there examples? Is public policy at a federal or a state level assisting in any way yet, or are they bystanders?
No, unfortunately, I'm not seeing this happening right now. As much as I like to see it happening, I'm not reading any, governmental initiatives. I'm not reading any universities coming up with special areas. I'm not doing this. So we can observe it as much as this is necessary. However, I can see members from EFRA, like automotive suppliers and also automakers, that they are changing their vocational programs internally.
Yep.
So here clearly we can see that industry is much faster to adapt in the needs, right? So that is what we know from our members, and I think that has to take place and will take place in the future to a big extent.
So the private market forces are pushing in that direction, but
so I'll give you a very simple example. So we're talking about welders, for instance, assembly, but also maybe welders in particular, right? So welding is a technology that can be replaced by automation, but not in all cases. So you need specific certificates to do the welding operations. Mm-hmm. And these certificates, they are completely different by law and also by different standards that we have in Europe when it comes to material that is used in military and defense industry. Yeah. So you cannot just have the welder using the same or different steel and think that this is all okay. So that provides you a maybe 18-month period to get all certificates if you're fast. And I believe here we need to accelerate. That is probably done and necessary to be done on a national level.
Yeah.
Right? So here, I think we all need to understand that we have to accelerate our initiative always, because we are coming from a time where this was not so urgent, right? Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I'm told that in Germany, it can take more than a year to get a security clearance for somebody to work in a defense factory.
These are maybe some indicators that should clearly tell us, look, we are in a hurry and we are running out of our stocks in terms of buffers that we have kept in the past, and we need to fill them up again.
Final question to both of you, if I may. When we look at the way Russia has converted swathes of its industry to defense production in what was widely described as a war economy, can you imagine anything comparable happening in Europe? Or are we still thinking only in peacetime terms? And would it take a major war involving our countries directly to actually bring about such a transformation? Olaf.
Yes.
Yeah, me first. Okay. Yes, I can see this happening, but not to a complete change as we may read in the history books from the Second World War. I believe that by shifting and by having a gradual increase of dual-use parts, defense parts, and related industry fields, that is going to happen. And maybe we will end up on the higher level that we have been in the last 30 years, 40 years. Not to that extent that we read and hear from other countries.
Fuensanta, how about you?
Yes, Paul. Well, first, I think it's important to recognize that Europe is in a fundamentally different situation. The analysis shows that today most automotive companies in Europe are still thinking in peacetime terms. Defense is generally seen as a limited complementary activity, not a full transformation of their business. So, no, we are not seeing anything comparable to a full war economy approach.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not advocating a full war economy approach. I'm advocating doing enough of this so that we are able to create deterrence and to show any potential adversary that we too can ramp up defense production quickly if we need to.
There are good reasons also for that. If you look at the European system, it's much more fragmented with strong national competences. The economy is primarily market-driven, not centrally directed. And also there are, and these are the most important, there are political, regulatory, and societal constraints. So, I mean, it doesn't seem that at the same time we do see some movement, but
not as fast as it should be.
Yeah, indeed.
Well, thanks to both of you. That's all we have time for this week, but you can find my report entitled Driving Defence on the EPC website, www.epc.eu. And you can find the EFRA analysis we mentioned at www.efra, that's EFFRA.eu. The Language of Power will be back in 2 weeks' time with more on EU-China relations, asking what it is that European and Chinese think tankers talk about when they get together behind closed doors in a program sponsored by the European Union. Until then, I'll say thanks to my colleague Simona Lusuardi for helping to organize and record this podcast, and thanks to you all for listening in.